All right. Welcome to the podcast. Glad we can make this work.
Yeah, I've been dodging you for
Busy.
for months, it feels like.
Listen, it's we have busy lives, kids, and
Yeah,
business endeavors, and
you know how it
trying to get
is.
to the gym and be fit, right?
Yeah, yeah, try.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
I'm glad we be here, Mo. So you've been part of a company. You've been part of the sale. You've done other things. You've moved around.
Yeah.
Give us a little bit of the backstory, sort of how we came to have the Mo we have today.
Oh, wow, it's a long and winding road, but how much time do you have? So I was going to college, and we spoke briefly before this started recording. I was supposed to go to medical school. That didn't pan out, and so I ended up taking it was like an introductory course to computer science. And by that time, I had already racked up a few degrees. I was trying to stay in school as long as I could, really,
Nice.
because I didn't know what I wanted to do.
What degrees do you have?
Biology, history, then I have computer science and applied math.
Nice.
Yeah. So
Smart guy.
over school. I don't know about smart.
I'm coming to you with my questions.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah. Hopefully I can answer them. But I took a course in it was called CPSC 105, problem solving with databases, and I absolutely loved it.
Sorry, Corinne, that was me. Should have put that on silent.
Edit that out.
Edit that out.
That's right. Yeah. So, and then, kind of the rest is history. It just flew through that degree. I loved it, and then I started work for a subcontractor of a subcontractor of the Defense Department.
Cool.
Called IST Research, and a lot of it, we did a whole bunch of projects, and that was my internship. Worked there for a little bit after graduating, then bounced around various like federal agencies. There was a company called Excelis. I was there, FAA subcontractor, and then I was able to go to LA and contract for a bit for one of the big four auditing. I was a contractor.
Sure.
It was KPMG, and they had like a database breach or something. They needed engineers, and I really cut my teeth there on back end technologies back there. And then my dad, he guilt tripped me into moving to Florida. He was like, "Hey, I'm moving. I'm going to retire soon, and I kind of want you here with me. You're my son, et cetera, et cetera."
Sure.
This was like 8 years ago. And he still hasn't retired. So I like to joke that my dad abandoned me in Florida, but Florida's been good to me, and then more relevant to this podcast. I was brought on at a company called BluePallet as the founding engineer.
Cool. And
I helped the CTO there really build out the team from just me to about eight engineers, and then recent sale. Basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So not a doctor.
Absolutely
Doctor of science.
Yeah. Yeah. I know a bunch of other useless things, but don't come to me for your medical issues.
Yeah. No.
Yeah. That's not going to be good for your health.
So a bit about BluePallet, or what sort of drew you to that initially as an opportunity to grow? What was the sort of the spark there?
It was really innovative, and really the guys who were putting it together, they were really like, they believed in the product, right?
Yeah.
And there's a difference when you're hopping on to any sort of endeavor, whether that's a startup or not, whether the people really believe it or not, right? And they believed in it so much that the CEO was like, "Hey, I know it's kind of a risk, it's a small company or whatever. I can have my wife call your wife, and they can like kind of talk about, being a partner of someone who takes these risks in the tech field." And he was like, "I really believe in this thing.
Yeah.
And if you can come on and, we can build some cool stuff and see where we go with this."
Yeah.
So his passion and the CTO's passion, they really believed in it. So I hopped on board as the founding engineer, and it was a bit of a mess at the beginning, but like a lot of startups are. But we we churn through essentially what the product is. I'm sure you want to know is it's like LinkedIn meets Amazon for chemical companies. You know, you can't just get on Amazon and like order 12 molar hydrofluoric acid, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Might be a little dangerous.
Yeah, a little dangerous. Yeah. So
is that safeguarded? Like, you have to have a certain clearance to get onto a platform like that?
Not like a government clearance, but so we were a marketplace. So essentially what we did was we kind of vetted their financial health, and then you can connect with other distributors or sellers or buyers and then transact with them. You know, it's like sending a friend request or whatever on LinkedIn.
Sure.
You connect, and then, you know, we captured a whole, there was what separated us from our competitors was there was a back end that you could buy and sell right on the platform.
Okay.
Right. And then kind of as we developed it, capturing all that financial transactional data, you know, that's data. That's the that's the gold
name of the game.
Yeah, that's what it is these days. So and that's kind of like what set us apart from.
It's like Tesla. It's not really a car company; it's a data company.
Data and batteries. Right? Yeah. That's kind of what they're, and that's really what any modern tech company it really is, right? They're giant data aggregation platforms. It's crazy. Like anybody with a cell phone is like, I read somewhere, this is not my statistic, I think it was wired.com. It's like we're like 10,000 points of data just walking around. And that's how these companies see us, right? The product isn't like streaming on Netflix. We're actually the product. Yeah. It's our data.
I think my phone has everything. It's got all of my my Whoop data. It's got all of my health biometrics. It's got my wake and sleep things. It's got, I know when I talk about things, it pops up on my social media channels. So everything is tracked.
Yeah, it is crazy because, like, you know, my wife is convinced, and many people are, that like their phone's listening to them, right? And it's not quite that scary. It can be. There's a lot of stuff by Edward Snowden, but he goes into like, you know, monitoring. That's a whole different can of worms. Yeah. But like our stuff is so interconnected. Yeah. Right. That it's not that it's listening to you, but it's able to intelligently predict what you're going to want. A lot of times these algorithms know what you want better than you actually know.
Sure.
And that's why you're like, holy crap, is my phone listening to me? Yeah. No, your phone's just really good at, or that platform is really good at figuring out what you need and want. So
no, it's impressive. That's the new digital age we're in, right? It's accelerated quickly.
Yeah.
I remember being, as a child, when you got like the first cell phone, right? The brick. And then you know, you start texting, and I'm 36. So texting back then was like brand new. My parents were like, what is this? I'm texting. I have all these like texts coming through on the phone bill. They're like, how are you texting this much? It's
because they used to charge like by the text.
You had to buy like groupings of them, you know, like 10,000 a month or something. And I was like blowing past that.
Oh yeah.
And now you're probably sending, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of messages at least in and out a month, right?
Exactly.
So the acceleration of the technology world is fascinating, and I'm interested to see where that goes from an artificial intelligence standpoint.
Yeah,
creatively being used in these different. I think it's already been around for a while, but as it gets better, you know, applications of that,
and it's already doing pretty impressive, I guess is a word, and there are people who call it scary, right? Yeah. Like Google's DeepMind, it's able to spot really difficult to spot cancers and MRIs and CT scans up to 40% better than like the world's top like radiologists, right? It's crazy. I mean, and then there's just like fear mongering, right? Like, oh my God, the Terminator is going to walk in my place of employment and sit down at my desk and take my job.
Yeah.
Arnold's not going to do that to you. What's going to happen is people who are savvy with the AI stuff, they're going to use AI to get better at their jobs.
Sure.
Right. And it will automate away a lot of jobs. It already has, but, and I'm biased, but I think that will free up people from doing this like terrible monotonous work to something that is possibly more meaningful to them.
Sure.
And I know I sound like some sort of priest of AI trying to like convince people, but that's really my point of view.
There's so many I look at even my own business of the basic things that need to get done,
Mhm.
but could be automated.
Yeah.
Like, I can't afford to spend time on it. Someone has to. I got to pay someone to do that, but it can be done faster.
Yeah.
I was having a conversation with another friend of mine, and they have an AI consulting company. So their whole job is to help a company understand how to integrate artificial intelligence into their business
Very nice.
in different areas to make it streamlined. And you're right. If I can take somebody who sort of by default has to do a mundane task that could be replicated over and over again, or smartly replicated with artificial intelligence and put their mind to use in another place, how
Yeah.
much more profitability is in that for me?
Yeah.
Right? Like just sort of doing things that are just have to be done versus things that could be revenue generating or creative or growth minded.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, that's key. And I was worked through in the past with a company that I was part of. They were a tech and service company, going from sort of lead to cash, right? How could you
Okay.
streamline when a lead comes in to when you turn it to cash for the company?
End to end, yeah.
And there were so many dysfunctions in the process. It was never the people. It was this process is just disjointed. It was manual. How can we improve this and add some automation in there? And that was just system automation. It wasn't artificial intelligence,
Sure.
right? But could we add artificial intelligence to a process like that and make it even faster?
Yeah. And you mentioned like SEO is a big industry that does something like lead to cash, right? Like how do you get from point A to point B and make it be
Yeah.
profitable, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, a lot of those tools are, like you said, not like intelligently implemented. But even then, like let's say you add like a Python web scraper, right? And it just grabs all the information you need and drops it into a database or even like a spreadsheet, God
Sure.
forbid. Um, that that alone, what that does is that eliminates user error, right?
Sure.
Humans are very, very prone to doing things that we don't actually mean to do, right?
Sure.
Machines are smart in that way. They're dumb in other ways.
Yeah.
But and that's why the dream of the automated car
Yeah.
is such a so many people are who are like the accidents that happen, right? Drunk driving,
Yeah.
even a super like and an AI that can drive intelligently. That's kind of the holy grail for that
Yeah.
industry.
Yeah. The machines are dumb, but you know what the limits are.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, you don't really know when or how it's gonna happen for you
Right.
necessarily, right?
No. Yeah. Yeah.
Right? You
Exactly.
don't know what the parameters are for a machine or, a system to a degree, I guess, for now. So tell me, you were drawn into this company, BluePallet, by the vision and the passion. What are some of the as you helped grow the organization, right? People jump into things, and a lot of our listeners are growing their own businesses or part of growing businesses and want to figure out ways to be better or maybe more motivated or inspired to do what you did.
Mhm.
Um, what are some of the inherent challenges that you experienced in doing what you had to do, both from just macro, right? From a standpoint of like, what are the challenges of, hey, I was leaving this and you were working for the government, the Fed for a while, it's moving to I'm going to a startup. What are some of those thoughts? And then also just what did it take from you to make sure that the business got from point A to point B to where you are now from success, right?
Mm.
By all measures.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think for a tech company, especially a small one, a small scrappy one, the advantages are that you're very agile, and agile is a term you'll hear in any software industry or company. It's the ability to kind of get work done in an organized way, but being able to pivot. And one of the advantages of having a small company, like, when I got there, like there was no like code, like really a code review process or anything. Like, you make your change, boom, push it to master, which is like the main trunk of
Yeah,
code, right?
sure.
Um, but that's insane. You're not supposed to do that. There's supposed to be a process. You're supposed to put it into like a testing environment.
Yeah,
But when you're small like that, like that's fun. That's scrappy. You go, you break things, see what works, see what doesn't.
yeah,
And we were lucky enough where we had like kind of a soft launch, kind of a period. But the challenges, which is the actual question that you asked, yeah,
sure.
is scaling, right? So in software, as you start volume of whatever, whether it's data or users on for a SaaS platform, a lot of times it is users for us that it was going to be transactional data
Right.
that's coming in. And so basically the challenge is you can either horizontally scale, right? And I'm speaking through the lens of the technology, right?
Yeah.
Which is adding more resources, or you can vertically scale, which is making the resources that you have more powerful. For example, let's say I have an AWS server, right? An EC2 instance. And I'll try not to get too technical and nerdy here, but you can either
the glossary out after.
right, yeah. That's what this nerd is saying. So you can either add more servers, right?
Yeah.
Or you can make the servers that you have much more powerful.
Sure.
Right. And the reason that that's relevant is because that's associated with cost, right? So the two big cloud providers out there's Azure, which is Microsoft, and then there's AWS, which is obviously Amazon's services. And the thing about Amazon is you have to be very careful. So they have various technologies that if you don't keep a real close eye on, it's going to be like the end of the month and they're going to send you this bill and you're going to have to like sell your firstborn to pay it. Right. And some technologies are more expensive than others.
Sure.
Like Redshift it's like a data aggregation tool. Very expensive if you're not intelligently scaling it. Right?
Sure.
You scale it too hard, you're going to get a really big bill at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So that's
already trying to run fairly lean to be efficient, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And I spoke about a small company, and we had some initial investors that with some good seed money, but you have to be smart about that stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of tech companies they get flooded with money, and they put like beer on tap and like ping pong tables, which there's nothing wrong with that, but that doesn't add value to the business, especially when you're trying to develop a SaaS platform.
Yeah. So challenges with managing technological resources to be smart about how the dollars are being allocated.
That was from being the mad scientist back there.
Right.
That's what we had to. If I could be like, hey, I needed all these different tools, right, from AWS. My CTO would probably laugh at me like, no, this costs like $1 million a month. Are you crazy? I'm not doing that. Go figure it out. And we had to.
Yeah.
We had to. And we used as many like open source technologies as we could.
Yeah.
Frameworks that we didn't have to pay for in terms of coding, and intelligently managing resources.
So there's and to some degree I'm familiar, but there's sort of beds of open architecture technologies to access free. I've seen some, but from a standpoint of development, there are a bunch of open access resources to access.
Yeah, there are, like, for example, for database technologies, like, MySQL is just off the top of my head, that's doesn't cost you any money, right? But then when you start to get into these really custom tools, you know what I mean? Things start to pile up and get expensive. So it's a matter of being able to, because those tools are good, right? Sure. And you want to use as much as you can to get a jump on the competition or make your platform better.
Yeah.
But nobody has infinite money.
Now, if someone's trying to get started and do their own thing, is this something that's commonly known that these tools are out there, or they have to like dig and find them, or
a lot of it's digging, and it also depends on what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
Right. Like, and there's nothing wrong with this, but if you're trying to set up like a website for a cookie shop, you're probably going to use WordPress, and that's most of WordPress is free and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But if you're trying to build like an intelligent AI tool that like can predictively, I don't know, tell you which movies you might want, right? There might be some tools out there that are very expensive, right?
Yeah.
And it depends on what you want to do, but that's part of the fun, I think, is being able to figure out, hey, can I do this? Like, do I have to reinvent the wheel, or can I go use a tool that's already there?
Yeah.
And programmers, I'll tell you, by nature, very lazy. Nobody ever wants to reinvent the wheel. We always want to use what's there.
Yeah.
And hopefully not have to pay for it.
Yeah.
And that's why open source is so beloved in the developer community.
Open source, sorry, open architecture before, but open source.
Yeah, open source. Yeah, like Linux, which is an operating system, Linus Torvalds' baby. Different flavors of that, and you can customize it. And when you do that, when you use open source technology, they release it out into the wild. It improves organically because there are people called maintainers, and they'll keep the code base evolving and getting better
That's
over
cool.
time. Yeah.
That's cool. So anybody could jump out there, find some tool to get started with a company if they really wanted to, and then eventually, obviously, would need to potentially get more complicated. They'd have to get some money to, or use their own to get something more sophisticated
Yeah.
per
Yeah.
se.
Or they, a lot of times what happens is, I'm contracting right now for a company that got bought out by Safelite Auto Glass,
Okay. Yeah.
right? And the owner of that consulting company, he was helping the guy who wrote the code base, but there's only so much a man can do in 24 hours, right?
Yeah.
Another challenge is getting the right personnel. So that's not like scaling. There's a technology aspect to it, but
Yeah.
there's a people aspect to it too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As a, let's say you are the investor, right? Looking to fund someone's idea, right? On the other side of this, I guess there's a delicate balance between I'm going to pitch you this company.
Mm.
We need this much money for these
XYZ,
technologies
yeah.
versus the expertise, right? Somebody like you comes in on the other side and you're investing in that, like yourself, basically, right? It's like, well, this person's good enough to go find these open source tools and sort of cobble together what we need at the beginning. So we only need this much. I'd rather pay more for that person versus maybe pay a little bit less for somebody and then go have a budget for a bunch of tech,
Yeah.
access. There's probably a delicate balance between that. I mean, if you're on the other end of that, if you were the one investing in somebody, what would you say?
Well, that's a tough question. Me, I'm more of the camp. You find the right people, right?
Yeah.
Because I think you can. And I've had good managers in my life who've reflected this idea is that you can train for skill.
Yeah.
Right. The tools are there, and most of the big tools that are out there have great documentation, so you can go figure it out. But if you don't hire the right person, especially at a small company,
Yeah.
there's a potential for a crash and burn, right? When we were hiring at BluePallet, they couldn't be brain dead, right?
Yeah.
We wanted to make sure they had like the coding skills. Well, we hired for culture.
Yeah.
And that's the other part of it is hiring the right people. And to answer your question, I think it's, I would be more about, hey, do we have the right team?
Yeah.
Right. And that is very much a soft skill, right? Like you sit down with someone, usually a good developer, if he's talking with another good developer, game recognized game, right?
Yeah.
So like
all those little nerd talk.
That's right. Yeah.
Acronyms are coming out.
That's right. So within 10 or 15 minutes, whether the person has a skill set,
Yeah.
but there's also, you have to worry about whether they
Yeah.
fit in the culture. I've worked with engineers who, they couldn't maintain eye contact with another human being,
Yeah.
but naturally gifted programmers, mathematicians.
Sure.
And then you have to be like, well, what's the balance here? This person can't talk to a business analyst, so you can build the most perfect program in the world.
Yeah.
But if you don't know how to improve it efficiently, and if you don't know how to sell it,
Yeah.
those marketing people, they're all those, it takes a team. Those people are important too.
Sure.
And I think for any sort of, again, speaking through the lens of technology, you have to be an effective technology communicator to be to be good at that.
Yeah.
Right.
I'd imagine, especially if you're growing this startup company, to be able to evangelize every aspect of this across the internal culture and the external with the investors, with the people who might buy your technology.
Yeah.
And communicate that all well on a small team.
Yeah. Because there's going to be a group of people who, let's say, investors that put money in, all they care about is dollar signs in their eyes, right? They want to make sure that, they want to minimize the risk and make sure there's going to be a return at the end, that they're smartly putting their money into this company. And then there's the customers. You gotta convince them, why your platform, right?
Yeah.
And if you can't communicate that effectively, they're not going to be in your,
Yeah.
And you're not gonna get your money back.
Well, I'm glad you brought up culture, and it's interesting. Maybe it's obvious, but no matter, it seems, the industry, the more people I've spoken to about this, culture, it always comes back to culture, right? Even though the technological skills are really important, whether it's software development or it's sales or it's operations or it's nonprofit, it always comes back to the culture of the team. And culture is a very sort of, I think, abused word when it comes to employees and building a team.
Oh, 100%.
A lot of it's sometimes like, we have good culture, and you're like, do you though?
What's your culture? Sitting around in cubicles?
Yeah, like, what is that?
I don't want to be
we
part
do
of
a
that
pizza
culture.
party on Friday. Like, okay,
whoopty.
Great, right? Yeah. Like, what is actual true culture? And it comes down to the more innate values, I think, of the people and what you're trying to, what vision you're trying to accomplish, and is everyone sort of row in the same direction? And are people really integrated together into good working groups? And so it's interesting to hear that you know, in a very technical aspect, it's also the more important thing, and that skill isn't inherent to most people, you know, when it comes to building.
Especially unfortunately in the software development field, and that's okay. There's going to be different personalities, and people have different ways they operate. But if you want to be like a leader in the space, you have to be able to know your stuff.
Yeah.
But you gotta be able to talk to the suits up in C-suite. You gotta work with marketing to effectively know how to sell the thing, right? And then you gotta excuse me, work with the customer. A lot of times you build something and you throw it out into the wild, and it's absolutely not really what the customer wanted. And the customer doesn't see the guts of the software, right? All they know is it's not working the way they want it to work. And then you got to put layers in place, keep the customers from the engineers. You got to put a pipeline in place so that any issues that come out are smartly and efficiently fixed.
What's the guy's name from Office Space? Like, I talk to the customers, so the engineers don't have to.
Oh yeah.
What do you say you do here?
It's so true. You don't ever want to put, unless it's like just you at that company as an engineer.
Yeah.
Don't put an engineer in front of the customer.
Yeah.
Man.
They're gonna be like,
it's gonna be bad time.
Glazing over. No, and that's similar in my firm. I think there is a place for deep technical analysis and explanation. And some people want to know how the watch is made. Give me all the nitty gritty. And those are special people that want to know that detail. Others, you get there and they're going to get lost, glazed over, stop paying attention, mishear what you said, misunderstand completely because they've already been sort of lost 5 minutes ago. And then you're like, yeah. And they're like, okay, cool. And they have zero understanding of even how it relates to them, versus some people just want to know, hey, here's what time it is.
Yeah.
And how it relates to you and your life and what you have going on, because that's how they're connecting. It's interesting because as an engineer through college, that I didn't go into that field, not in software, but in civil or architectural.
Oh, okay.
On that side of the house, I was sort of very deep into that industry, but I was always a people person, and that's what I enjoyed. And I just did not go that route, primarily because of the economy at the time, but also I just think my heart wasn't in the technical aspects of doing that regularly. It was just very mundane and did not enjoy it.
Sure.
I enjoyed people, but I was like, oh, well, I'm really a salesperson. But thinking about it, just put me in front of people whenever you can. Now looking at it, it's like, there's a really, for people who are out there who have this expertise, a deep understanding of technical knowledge, but have a good EQ and social abilities to be that person that can connect the dots is so important, especially if you want to be able to bring something that's highly complicated to broad market.
Yeah.
And or in front of potential investors or whoever, right? Clients.
And that's what I was talking about, an effective technology communicator, right? Yeah. Like, I can sit with a computer science nerd, talk about, disk read write speeds all day, right? I can guarantee you the customer does not care about, the various technologies, AWS, their disk read write speeds. That's not relevant to them, right? You need to translate like how that is going to help the customer like navigate the platform or get something done. Or if it's an investor, like, okay, the read write speeds are faster, but why should I put money into it? Like, how does that, and that's the being an effective technology communicator part, especially if you're trying to be a leader in the space. Yeah.
So, building things is your deal now. So you want to build more things.
Yeah, no, I'm a tinkerer, and my wife was here, she'd be like, "Wait, stop! No, you're not. You're not very handy at all." I like in terms of software. Yes,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
mostly I'm definitely a tinkerer. I love learning. That's like a big I'd say that's a prerequisite if you want to kind of like
Yeah.
last in the tech space. Is like you always got to be curious,
Yeah.
and that's a good trait to have in any field, right? But in software, if you stagnate, you will die. Yeah, not literally, but
Potentially.
yeah, yeah, you never
When
know.
the AI gets us.
That's right. Yeah, the Terminator shows
If
up.
you haven't developed their defenses yet. Yeah. What if so? If let's say that we have some young listeners, or people that listen to this are like, hey, I want to transition into technology. What are some of the resources that are out there, other than obviously traditional schooling,
Mhm.
that maybe you find to be useful, or areas that people should focus on based on sort of where things are trending to in
Mhm.
our society and as a culture, maybe economically? What are you seeing?
If you want, like, if you want to break into the space, is what
Yeah,
you're saying.
yeah,
There are boot camps out there, and they'll take your money.
yeah,
But I do tell people who are trying to break in to be careful because the boot camps are effective if you are ready to go at a breakneck pace. They go really fast. They hope they've got your money. They don't care, right?
yeah,
They'll throw online courses at you, and if you're good at it, you'll probably pick it up. But I will say this: if you can get your foot in the door, which is usually the hardest part, if you don't have a degree or whatever, to start to get okay at it, it'll take about 2 years,
mm,
right? So that I would say that a word of warning for that aspect of it. But the good news is, like, we don't have, like, or I say we, I'm not a representative of the software industry, but
sure,
there's no real like body in place to gatekeep your presence in the industry, right?
mm,
And like the medical field, you got to get licensed stuff, which
yep,
you should. I'm not saying you shouldn't,
sure,
but right now it's kind of like Wild West. Like, there's a term called data scientist. Like for a while, everyone and their grandmother was a data scientist.
yeah,
And they're like, well, no, you're not. You can feed spreadsheets into a scraper. That's what you're doing. An actual data scientist is someone who has like deep like mathematical chops, is able to like really pull out insight out of data.
mm,
And their job is to go in and see things in data like an oracle
yeah,
that
yeah,
other people can't.
yeah,
That's an actual data scientist. But there's no, you can't just walk around and call yourself an MD, right? You gotta get licensed
right,
for that.
right,
But there's nothing like that in the industry. But I think that's, in a way, it's a double-edged sword, but it can be good too,
yeah,
because there's nothing barring. Like, let's say there's nothing wrong with it. Let's say you only have your GED, right? And you want to get into software development. I've met people who were self-taught, didn't go to college, their GED or whatever, and some of the best programmers I've ever met.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's great,
So that barrier is not there.
sure,
Yeah.
that's great.
Yeah.
Data scientist, yeah, I've seen that title a lot on LinkedIn, right?
Oh yeah, LinkedIn is
A lot on LinkedIn,
notorious for
a lot,
inflated
a
titles.
lot of inflated titles.
Yeah.
Um, we were talking about artificial intelligence earlier. To pull things out of data, like an oracle, do we feel like that's an area that artificial intelligence will make an impact? I feel like there's a lot of areas it could, but do we feel like what's the difference between somebody in that space looking at it and being like sort of, I don't know, Rain Man to that, right? To some
Sure.
degree, right?
Count the toothpicks. Yeah.
Versus like, hey, you got a machine that's like just pulling out a bunch of trend data and like little flags and flagging it for you and saying, hey, look into this piece. Do you see that where do you see, I guess, that playing a role in a lot of the cross section of software?
Yeah. AI is in like kind of an interesting space. Like right now, like I wouldn't call it like true intelligence or whatever.
Hmm.
That's a very loaded term I just threw out there. But like right now, like it's you hammer a model with data, and it uses like heuristics, right? The heuristics is essentially a shortcut. The human brain does it really well. In fact, the one of the best ways to train some of these AI models is to use neural networks,
Mm.
right? Kind of simulating how your brain makes shortcuts. And it's very brute force, right? You throw a million pictures of cats at it, and essentially it'll be like, all right, it's got 4 legs, it's furry. Oh, it meows. Okay, it's a cat, right? So it can make those connections, but is it true intelligence? I'm not quite sure. But I think we're working towards that.
Sure.
There's a book, and it's my personal Bible. It's called Godel Escher Bach, The Eternal Golden Braid by Douglas Hofstadter. And he goes into that, like, and it's a little dense, but he goes into it like, is true AI possible? And he talks about various mathematical systems and like contradictions and all the things that computers are not very good at.
Yeah.
Right. But humans are just, by nature, it's just, we don't even think about it. Right. And that's difficult to emulate with a machine.
That's interesting to think about. If it's truly possible to get full artificial intelligence.
Yeah, systems that are aware of themselves,
self-aware,
right?
yeah.
So and that's, I mean, like I said, like you're you, I know I'm me.
Yeah.
But that's, and then you drop into conversations about consciousness and philosophy, stuff that people much wiser than me for thousands of years have debated.
Yeah.
Right. So
I like those deep questions.
But it's interesting, right?
Yeah.
I think there's going to be at a point in history when we're going to have to like develop laws to see whether an AI has rights or not. Like, can you imagine like your Roomba sues you?
Yeah.
Like, and then they're going to need to make laws, to kind of navigate that.
Yeah.
And there's ethics involved too, right? There's this thought experiment about an automated car, right? And the trolley problem, right? On the right side, there's an old lady walking across the street.
Yeah.
And there's a group of children to the left. Do we trust or want an AI to make that decision for us? I mean, which way is it going to go? You want to run over the old lady or the group of kids, right?
Sure.
That's nobody wins.
Nobody wins.
It kind of feels wrong now.
Yeah.
To let a machine just calculate the odds and be like, you know what, the old lady's going today.
Yeah.
It's hard as a human, and to give that decision to AI, it's, man.
That's where we go with all this, right? A lot of this goes that direction. It's a lot of stuff you see in the movies. Yeah, the movies are based, like iRobot was based on a little bit of that, right? It's interesting to see because I think there's that whole piece of it, and then there's all the little pieces of artificial intelligence you can add into like a business operation and make it more efficient. And I don't think people connect the dots between those little efficiencies and like the broader scope of where that technology goes, long term.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's very interesting.
But I think, and I'm not saying I'm an optimist, but I think what we spoke about this briefly earlier, as the AI gets better, I think it will make people's lives better.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There are dangerous jobs out there. There are things that humans don't actually want to do. You know what I mean? Like we should automate those away. We want people to do meaningful things in their lives. And I think the biggest proselytizers of AI, they harp on this, right? We want to, sometimes it's a little grandiose, but we want to free people to do meaningful work in their lives.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think AI is a great tool to achieve that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Very cool. We'll have to dig into it. I'm look up that book you said earlier as well.
I'll text it to you.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
I'll post it in the show notes. So a few other questions. So with building things, what are some of the sort of struggles that innately come with these? Obviously scaling, you said earlier, was one of the, and was it scaling tech, scaling people? What are some of the maybe protocols someone could employ to help with, I don't know, being better at that? What are some of the resources people should employ to get better at that? Or some of the things that you felt made the biggest impact in helping you get from A to Z in that process? And are there lessons to be learned? Was anybody or people or, I don't know, websites or places people should go that you felt were most impactful as you went through that journey for yourself?
Yeah, for myself or for the people aspect of it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I can't point to like a book or something like I just did that was for AI. But for me, there was no book that was like, hey, this is how to effectively manage people, or this is how to effectively hire a good engineer. I think that's learned over time.
Yeah.
And I think you can get people who can do that for you. And you know, like I said, the scaling people is more important, and it's probably more challenging too.
Yeah.
Hiring the right people. In terms of the tech side of it, I can't point to a specific resource, but I think that once you're doing it long enough, you do get a sense of what could work and what couldn't, right? And the way you do that is you have to be a tinker. You build it, it might work, it might be a horrible idea. And trust me, I've had more horrible ideas than I've had good ones.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now it's on camera.
Now it's on camera. Me too.
Yeah.
I think I have the what is it? Oh, the Working Genius assessment, which is Patrick Lencioni's assessment. He's a leadership coach and he has some few books. I did his assessment, and I have innate ability to be good at invention and then galvanization. So I'll be like, listen, I got this great idea, Mo. And you'll be like, cool, what is it? I'll tell you. And I'll be like super galvanizing. I'll get you all rallied, like, yeah, this is awesome. This is great. And then we'll go to execute. And I'm like, wait, there's a bunch of holes in this.
Mm-hmm.
So I need somebody between the idea I come up with and the now let's go run and do this.
Yeah.
To be like, let's poke holes in this first. You whiteboard it out, like go back and redraw it. So I get it. I think everyone feels like when they see success, oh, this idea came up, joined a team, did this, it was successful, great. No, there's a million steps between there and success. Even when you find the right idea, you're going to find tons of failures in between, but then also that idea might be the wrong one. And you're wholeheartedly like, yes, this is it. And then you're like, I gotta literally just throw this in the garbage and maybe take a few lessons out of it and go do something new.
Yeah. And to do that, I'm sure it's easier said than done because you have to set your ego aside.
Yeah.
Because some things are going to work, most things aren't. For me personally, being able to say the words "I don't know," I have no clue, because what that does is that opens you up to go learn.
Sure.
Right? Because if there's the Dunning-Kruger effect and all those like cognitive biases, but it's intuitive. Like if you act like you know everything, no one knows everything. But if you act like that and you're closed off to new ideas or approaches or perspectives, you're not going to get to where you want to be. You're not going to be able to learn more. And I think learning is the key here. You have to say, I'm not sure, but I'm going to go learn it.
Right.
And that, when I interview engineers, like sometimes I'll throw not an impossible question, but a really difficult one, kind of the Kobayashi Maru test from Star Trek.
Yeah.
Sorry, very nerdy.
I love it.
But if they're trying to like beat around the bush and just throwing 10,000 words at it, I get a little suspicious because I feel like they're trying to pretend that they know or something.
Yeah.
But if they're just like, I have no clue, but can we talk about it? Like, can we like whiteboard it out, or like, I'm not sure, or even if they're like, I don't know, but I'd love to learn.
Sure.
Man, that's I love hearing that.
Key.
Yeah. I love hearing that.
Yeah. No, I know. I the more I've been poured into from other people and been open to coaching, because at certain points in my life, I was like, oh no, like, I have these 2 engineering degrees. Like, what do I need to learn? I just need to get a good job. Let me go to work.
Yeah.
And you're like, wait, I don't know anything.
Yeah.
About most things, Yeah.
Like
now you're like, all right, I don't know a lot of things about a lot of things, but I know I'm finding the edges of what I don't know, and I'm okay with that. And then, okay, can I go learn that? Books, podcasts, mentors, especially mentors. I mean, helping you look around corners on things, and really also push you to be like, you don't know that. You need to learn that, or ask the questions that you need to be asked that you won't ask yourself because you're sort of blinded by the idea itself. You're like, okay, we're going at this. This is a great idea. I'm running hard at this, and your heart's in it. You're like, I'm going to make this work because I'm not a person who wants to fail. You're not sort of going to half-ass it either. You're going to go all in, and then you're like, did you really think this out? Right?
Yeah.
You're going to have to go back to the drawing
board. And when you
do,
it might not be a good idea. Darren, he works out with us. We've been bouncing ideas back and forth, and we had some idea about like electric vehicles, but and then he found some articles like that idea got murdered in the crib. You know what I mean? It was a reality check.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean you stop, but you have to be like, all right, maybe not this idea.
There's a lot of things that don't work. Let's move on to the next one.
Yeah.
Like take something of value from it and be more excited about the next iteration.
Yeah.
Versus the fact that that dream has been murdered. As
you said. Yeah. A little dark. I'm sorry. Yeah.
I love it. Oh man. So I love it. So you're building technology. We met in the gym, so you're working out, you're doing CrossFit. What else? You're trying to do CrossFit. We all try.
Yeah.
We do it, but
do you ever really CrossFit?
We're always attempting to be good at CrossFit. Right. So it's always the attempt to do things that seem impossible. What else is going on? What else do you get into?
I got a baby on the way, so that'll be keeping me busy. I'm actually been trying to do stuff with my hands more.
Yeah.
I joked earlier about, my wife will correct you and tell you I'm not very handy, but I've been trying to be. I recently tried to patch some drywall.
Yeah.
C-.
Nice.
Yeah, it looks pretty bad, but
effort's there.
Yes, I tried. I tried. I painted it over, and I was like, "Wow, this is awful. This is terrible." Yeah, but I know now what doesn't work.
Yeah,
right. And next time there's a dent, I'll have 3 kids. There's gonna be a dent in the wall.
There's gonna be another patch.
Yeah, there's gonna be another patch. Yeah, and I'll go patch that, and maybe it'll look a little bit better next time.
Yeah,
maybe we'll crawl up to a C. But I think when you work with your hands, that works different parts of your brain.
Yeah,
rather than like if you're sitting there staring at code or solving a differential equation or whatever.
Sure,
that's very mental. But I think working with your hands has its own value too. Like my dad, he's a physician, entrepreneur, but what he loves to do now is he loves to garden. He's got a green thumb. He's got land on the other coast of Florida, and he's got lemons, mangoes, avocado. So much so, my friends actually dubbed him the Mangalorian.
That's a great name.
No, it is.
The Mangalorian.
Yeah, I can't take credit. My friend named him that, but he's become a mango sommelier. Like he'll taste a mango and be like, "Oh, this is from the region of he gets really geeky with it. But learning new skills. Yeah, I'm trying to.
I did hear, but I was having a conversation with one of my friends. He's an engineer, mechanical engineer, and he's very technical. Thinks of his mind a lot. It's just how he works. But he's now doing woodworking in his garage, and he's like, I just hear that you use your mind a lot. You should do like something with your hands, to help be soothe almost everything else you're doing in the day. And he's like, yeah, it's very therapeutic for me to do woodworking, even though I'm not great at it, but I'm like iterating and finding ways to be better. So that is true. I guess that's why I enjoy, CrossFit, so to speak. And
no, it's great. Yeah.
And I do enjoy gardening, I suppose. Not the best at it, but
yeah, I mean, and you won't be good at everything.
I've grown a carrot or two.
Yeah. So it's about improving over time.
Yeah.
And that's satisfying, right? Like if my next patch of drywall turns out okay, I'm like, hey man, like I'm getting there.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, Bob Vila in no time.
Now you gotta throw some orange peel on it, the texture, and
right, exactly. Yeah. So little by little, iterating.
Nice.
Yep.
So that actually was another conversation, which is growing a company from startup to sale is a lot of work. Having children is a lot of work, right? You're gonna have 3 kids. I got 3 kids.
Yeah.
So I understand managing the family dynamic, the relationship with the spouse, whatever it is, all that stuff, right? How have you found it to be most effective to be sort of, I don't personally believe in balance. I believe it's more integration. Like, how do you integrate things together when you can, or just be, hey, this is just the hour I'm doing this and I'm going to be as intentional as possible. But how have you found that to be for yourself, and what sort of lessons have came out of that, where you're growing a business and substantial one, but also you're growing a family, and that's, just as important, right?
Yeah. They talk about work-life balance, and I think the important thing is making time for the things you feel, you have to prioritize.
Yeah.
And sometimes things will fall on the back burner. You just have to keep an eye on it and keep an eye on that stuff. It's about being aware, I think.
Yeah.
Awareness and prioritization, right? If you're not, as a dad, as a husband, you're not doing what you need to do, you'll hear it, right? And then you'll have to pivot, is what I'm saying, right? You'll have to be agile in your own life and say, maybe I need to hit the 7 a.m. CrossFit as opposed to the 5 p.m. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because the family needs it. And I think, um, I think that was great what you said about integration, because a lot of times when you're trying to do, you've got your work life and then your home life, um, you won't get true balance, right?
Yeah.
But you'll have to prioritize what's important at what time.
Yeah.
So I think that's been a challenge for me.
Yeah.
I'll be honest. There were times I neglected a certain part of my life, and then that comes back and bites you later.
Yeah.
In whatever way
Sure.
that may be. I won't get into specifics, but it's important that once you become aware of it, of whatever that issue is,
Yeah.
being able to pivot. I'm big on accountability. Be like, hey, my bad. What can I do to fix it?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I feel like the balance component is almost a losing proposition, because to find true balance and be exceptional in all areas is extremely rough. And you're going to see yourself, oh, I'm trying to balance this, and I'm either really good at doing the things with my family and my
Yeah.
business is failing. I'm like, well, I'm failing now. I'm doing really good with the business and the things with the family are failing. And so you're constantly almost on the back foot of failure, versus can you just integrate these things together in some way? Is it fitness and is it business, fitness and, family? Can we do things together with the family actively? How can we do things that are going to benefit the business together with the family, or fitness wise? And are the ways to integrate certain components? And then with whatever time we are spending in those areas, just be extremely highly intentional, and attempt at all costs to be as efficient in that block of time. Maybe it's, we're going to do things with the kids today, and that hour, that 2 hours, or could be the whole day is going to be just completely dedicated. And I'm not taking work calls, right? Like whatever it is. And so that's where it's been just challenging for me. I mean, frankly, just you got to build a business from scratch. You have 3 children, and all the dynamics of that, and the stress on the household, because uh they have different needs
Yeah.
and all that, right? And then you're trying to also maintain health. And there's a time where I was working a lot of hours, and I was doing great in corporate life, financially, promotions, all that stuff. My health was like going just down the tubes because of it. And I'm like, all right, I can't do that. Like
Right.
I have to put some priorities in and just task it out or calendar it out, right? I find calendaring is what has helped everything for me.
Yeah.
It's just making sure that from 4:30 a.m. when I wake up to go to the gym by 5, and then it's on the calendar I'm doing that, and then the driving home, the reading, the meditation, the getting ready, the getting dressed, the leaving to the office is like all on the calendar too. And then the whole day of like meetings and whatnot are on the calendar. Um, and so if I don't do that, I didn't get them done. Right.
Mm.
So if I want to be super good in certain areas, I got to put it on there. Like, hey, I'm doing things with the kids today. My wife and I are going out there today. We have a vacation. Like if it's not on the calendar, it's definitely never going to be addressed.
Yeah.
I found that's helped. It's also, you don't want to be sort of a slave to the calendar, but if you can be the CEO of the calendar, it's a more of a mindset shift to be able to get it. That's helped me out a little bit.
Yeah. And actually, I could learn a thing or two from you, I guess, in that regards. I'm much more of a controlled chaos, right? I bailed on you like 3 times because I don't know what's on my I don't have a calendar, right? I should, and I might go set one up. But yeah, no, that's something I'll take away from this. I probably need a calendar.
Yeah, it's a fine line, right? Because I'm certainly not very organized. I'm more of the guy who's just out there doing things and like, let's just do this. Cool, sounds great. Let's go do that. But that helps me just keep a baseline of some structure and framework
Yeah.
operationally, because I'm innately not operationally oriented. Like I'd prefer the chaos because I thrive in that.
Yeah.
Just like, hey, we're doing this. Cool. Boom. Let's go. But if I don't, the other stuff I need to do doesn't get done.
Fall by the wayside. Yeah.
Right. So,
Yeah.
well, I appreciate you coming in. It's been very thought evoking, a lot of deep conversation about AI. Maybe not taking over the world.
Not yet.
Not yet. But hopefully you'll develop something to help us there. We'll see what your next endeavor is. Keep us updated on that. And we appreciate it. Any sort of final thoughts?
No, that's a lot of pressure. I don't have a lot of, I don't have any wisdom we'll keep learning, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. Stay curious,
I thought that was big. I mean, you said the best value in a person you're looking for on your team, or you want part of your culture, is somebody who is growth minded,
willing to learn.
That's
the big thing. That's the big thing. And if you're open to learning, you're in a good spot.
So stay willing.
That's right. Stay willing, kids.
Thanks for coming, brother.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.